is breeding blue crabs from the Chesapeake.
Okay.
We have never had blue crabs in Maine before. Uh, uh,
Yeah, that I just luckily today I just looked up and there's a humpback whale in the right beside the boardwalk we walk on in the harbor we go to, and there's swordfish swimming around the other harbor. It's like, okay, well that's different
in Newfoundland?
in Newfoundland.
Oh, Lordy.
But that's the harbor that we're on. I think it's the harbor itself is like 60 or 70 feet deep. It's quite deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's the tidal range like?
Not bad. Not bad. Maybe meter and a
Oh,
half
yeah.
at the
Yeah.
highest.
Not extreme. Yeah.
Not like Fundy.
There's very few things like Fundy.
I vaguely recall going down to Inglewood, Florida, and I felt that had a greater tidal range. But I was like a child, and you see things differently
Yeah.
at that age.
And I can't speak to Florida. Maybe Jaden. Oh,
The dark side of the Loon.
Jerry, there's something I haven't seen in a long time. Right. I've got a copy of that too. Yeah. Paul Spitzer's on there, as I recall. Yeah.
So
that's actually Paul's phrase. He came up with that.
So we have some well, Jay's not here yet, which is surprising. Nancy will be running late. She had another meeting. She had to attend at the same time. Kim from Wild North will also be running late, or she's on the phone. So
I see her down there.
She's down there, but she's just not listening in.
And as I recall, Natasha can't attend today.
Yeah, she's chasing.
She's chasing a 2-year-old.
She's chasing her 2-year-old nephew. So we're just going to wish her the best.
Absolutely.
All right. So I guess we'll assume that Jay can't make it. I don't think he said he could, but it's the first week of school, isn't it, for him?
I think
That's
so.
probably right. Yeah.
So he's probably life is a bit chaotic at the moment. So we can just keep going. So welcome everyone. We have a small group. Whole 8 of us. And I'm not, does anybody want to introduce himself, or would you like to just move forward and keep going with the meeting? If you want to introduce yourself, just put up your hand.
Sure. I think this is my first time joining this meeting, specifically the Loon Diver group. But my name is Jaden. I'm a new Loon specialist with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. So I'm excited to be here with you all today. I've spent the past 2 years with LPC in New Hampshire. So a lot of familiar faces, but I'm excited to be continuing work with loons in my home state of Minnesota. So yeah.
Welcome, Jaden.
And I was just checking the chat, and Kim from Wild North has just put on the chat that she's tuning in on her phone, getting audio on her phone.
Okay. I'm just making notes as we go. We all know I forget to make notes. So we have somebody else on their phone as well. And I'm going to acknowledge who I really am. I'm not really Gregor. I'm just on Gregor's system. So we'll rename me, and it's Kathy Jones, by the way.
There's Jay.
Sorry, guys, I'm going from one meeting to the next. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes. Well, welcome, everyone. So to start with, we're going to spend a few minutes on the steering committee update. And what we had chosen to do was to rewrite the working goals. And I don't know if anyone had a chance to review those. So I guess that's my first question. If people didn't have a chance to review those, I will just leave those available until next month. I'll put them in the chat for now. We didn't change much. What did we add? We changed a couple words, and we added to develop and strengthen the community of loon diver conservation. We added that because somehow we missed that in the original goals. So I will add an action is that I will send these back out and request comments on them. Okay. The other thing we were talking about was the steering committee, which right now is a decent size. It is 5 of us, am I right? But we were wondering if we needed a more Western perspective. So Jay's going to talk to a couple people about that. But if anyone has some suggestions or would like to be part of the steering committee, and frankly, it's pretty low effort. You have to like get a couple extra emails a month and help us decide about who's talking at which time. So it's not a big deal. But you're welcome to reach out if you're interested or have suggestions for that. Next.
Who do we have as Western members of the group as a whole?
No one right now. A Western members?
Yeah.
Oh boy, now you're making me think. It's been going down. We had the Loon Foundation, but I have not heard from them recently. And
Yeah.
those are the ones in BC. We had the Pole Shucks, which I'm probably most likely pronouncing that name wrong. And I don't think we have anyone from Ricketts anymore.
Yeah.
No, but I think Jamie Belt was somebody I was going to reach out to.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Jamie came to a couple of the early meetings from Glacier
Mhm.
National Park in Montana. And there certainly are people out there. I don't think we have anybody at the moment from Ricketts Foundation in Wyoming. Since
I know-
Arcata went to graduate school, so yeah,
I had mentioned Carl Brown was actually contracted by BRI to work in that area, and
right.
he's one person I know is interested. He's just a tough guy to grab and hold down, and let alone come to meetings because he's running from one state to
Yeah.
the next.
Yeah.
But I know he's been interested, so he's one person I thought I'd reach out to, but I thought Jamie Belt would be the first person, knowing that she was here a couple times.
Yeah, Jamie would be good if she
Yeah.
can find the time.
Yeah.
I mean, she is the citizen science officer for Glacier National Park, so
That's a good choice. Now, Gail Harless. Does she come? She comes to the meeting regularly,
Yep.
doesn't
Yeah.
she? She's also a Western content person. She's from Wyoming by the looks of it.
okay. I didn't know that.
Which I
Okay.
didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kim puts on the chat that she's in Alberta, and
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. More Canadian content would always be welcome.
absolutely. You know, in the other group, the rescue and rehab group, we've got Cindy Schreier from Alaska too. I don't know that she would want to participate in both groups, but we can talk to her.
All right. Well, there's some suggestions. We'll let Jay explore his first, and then maybe we'll reach out to a couple other. Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
And Kim, if you are, we won't put you on the spot right now.
Yeah.
But if you're interested, feel free to reach out if you'd like to join the steering committee. Because yeah, I'm right now I'm the only Canadian. So it's you're in a good position for both. Okay. So don't mind me, I'm making some notes. Now we have the steering committee. One thing that we did last week was we discussed particular speaker suggestions, and we had 3 ideas we were considering. Is one a Loon platform presentation to launch the idea of building standard Loon platform information. The next one was, oh good Lord, have I already forgotten? The next one was to talk to Matthew first and have him hopefully present on the amalgamation of some data sets. And the third one was some recruitment and retention speakers in this new year. Jay, do we have any updates on any of those?
Yeah, my goal was to have Eric Hansen talk to us. He gave an interesting presentation at the Northeastern Loon Working Group, NELSWIG, and some of you might have attended that either virtually or in person. And I think he's agreed that he might be willing to talk with us. I gave him the two possible dates of September and October, and he said, I prefer October. I said, well, I might be able to swing it for September. Would that be better? And haven't heard back. I think I might be able to get him to do that. And then I've been emailing Matt first, and the only day he cannot do September, but he can do October and is more than glad to do it to talk about his stuff. So I think we, if I send Eric another email, I'm sure we could probably, sling him into giving something to start the conversation. And I know our agenda, for today and possibly going in, or today will be to talk about platforms, and maybe it's a good segue to actually sort of think about some ideas that we can throw out to the rest of the group, to sort of, the right word is, tack on to Eric's presentation and discussion on in September.
That'd be cool to hear. Yeah.
then-
And if we have to shift things around, we have to shift things around.
Well, then, I
yeah.
want to say too, Kathy, I think, weren't you going to also speak to the Tewksbury on her work with respect to, was that supposed to be for potentially November?
Yes, and I'm trying to remember if I sent the email or not.
Okay.
I will double check it. I've been buried in data, but yeah, John is on board, so John probably knows more about this project than I do. But I
Yeah.
thought she did her master's on motivations of loon monitors in New Hampshire,
Ah,
and it's about 180 pages, and
Yeah.
I think. And I just read the summary and the graphs, which is classic me. And I thought, well, that looks a lot like ours as well. And I thought it was a good informative segue into what works with Loon survey participants and where we are going to run into problems in the future. So I thought it was a really good place to look at where we're being successful and where we may have to work further into the future. So I'll double check with her and make sure that she got that email. Again, she might be quite busy right now. She's Western as well, if I recall right. She's moved and working for a program down out west.
Huh.
All right. Any other comments on this before we move to the next section? Okay, I like that. All right, Natasha, the outreach and education tool that Natasha has created. Thank you so much for Natasha. She's unable to be here to discuss it today, so I promised her I would. The fact sheet in English is finalized. It's available on the drive, and I think Natasha mailed it to everyone. She has requested that we try to track it a little, and she provided a link for the tracking spreadsheet. But all that information is in the same drive, so it's something you can regularly grab if you want it, and I will just grab the link here right now and share it with people. Let me just, I just had it. And we also have a French version created. Thanks to Laura Puck in Quebec Oiseau, and it's been reviewed by one person in our office. So certainly it's considered ready to go. And if anybody needs a French version, they're welcome to it. And they're welcome to use it. It's the same thing. You can put in your organization name and your logo. Now, Natasha sent it all up to put in your transparent logo. I myself, because our logo is very fine line and detailed, it did not look well. So what I did with ours, because our logo also has our name in it, I just left off our name and put in our organizational logo in white, and it looks pretty good. So there's two options there for putting your information on it. And what else do I have to say? Oh, we were kind of hoping that at some point in the future, someone will have the capacity to translate this into Spanish for us, because that'll be another area. There's what are the most popular languages of cottagers and Lake people right now? And I would think English, French, and Spanish probably hits the big ones. We may be moving into Mandarin and some other languages. So if anybody has that capacity, terrific.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
Kathy, I could put it into, crude Spanish, but I'd want somebody who's more fluent to, and it'll be, probably a month until I'd have time to do that, but I could rough it out and then we could get somebody to do it. And I do have a student who is fluent in Mandarin, if you want me to pass it on to her.
Where we run into problems, and maybe I am more familiar with these problems living in a country that has two national languages, but what we have ran into the problem when we started with Birds Canada is we did everything in English, and then we had a translator do the French.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
since they were not of a science-oriented local dialect translation, they all sounded weird. And so this is my hesitation with all these things is how do we make sure we sound in the colloquial language of the day in these languages?
Yeah,
And that's I'd rather almost not do it than do it wrong. And
Sure.
but that's just me. There's like lots of us here to make this decision, but it's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Because it gets big, like just little things like if plongeon huards is the name of a loon in French, right? We've always called it plongeon, but we were informed quite emphatically last year that it needs to be called huards because that is
Really?
the common name in
Yeah.
Quebec. And then it's also got another name, plongeon immer.
Yeah,
So just
Interesting.
like we got the Great Northern Diver. So it
Yeah.
gets really complicated.
Yeah.
So it's just we want to make sure that if we do the translations, we do them right.
Yeah. It's funny. I remember years ago talking to Jack Barr about when he was working on his PhD thesis in Ontario and needing to talk to people in the field. And he said his English wasn't very useful and his French wasn't very useful, but the Algonquin was essential.
Yep. And if he then it's much more, there's much fewer native tongues spoken in Ontario than
Yeah.
there used to be, but
Yeah.
I can understand him being in that position, which is an unfortunate loss. And okay, so that's where we set with that. Does anybody have any questions about the platforms? Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Erica. She had a couple cool things she wanted to share.
Yeah.
Do you need to have
Could you
shared
stop
positions?
recording, Kathy?
Okay. You want me to stop recording? Oh,
Correct.
you already have.
I can't share the pictures and video, or I can't have pictures and video
Start the recording. So I would love to have people just be willing to go in and trim the recordings that we put up so that all the stuff at the front and the back that are no good comes off. And if anybody's willing to do that and take on that role, let me know. I ended up going with what they call a specialized channel. And the problem I'm having with it is the public nature of it. If I put it public, it's easy for everybody to get to. If I put it private, it's very hard to get to. If I put it as the third option, I have to send you a link for every platform that goes, for every recording that goes up, and you have to track that link, which sounds like it's a lot of work.
Why would we not want it public?
There might be some science that's shared with us, just like Erica did, that is not for public consumption yet. So what we can do there is we have to ourselves remember to trim that out of the video or to pause the video during those times so that we're not putting up somebody's property integrity rights up when we don't have the right.
But then even the members of our group won't be able to see it.
Correct. They will have to come to
So-
the meetings to see those. You're all right.
So there's private channels, correct?
Yes. But
And is
those,
that complicated or?
you can't search them. You have to be invited to see each video. So I would have to literally go in and email every single person on the list for every email that I put up. And then you have
That
to,
doesn't sound right.
that's what it tells me. That's what it tells me.
You don't mind if I double check, do
You
you?
may go ahead and double check. They may have changed the rules. It's not beyond these guys. Everybody's security levels are increasing. And I just looked at all this the other day because I thought it would be easier. So that's where we set right now. But it's the same thing. People are not going to want their private information, those private projects recorded and put out there. So we will have to continue to pause meetings if people are reporting private integrity information. And what else do we have? Jay, do you want to say that's pretty much all that I have really to share? Jay, do you want to say anything about platforms or ask for group updates? What are you thinking?
I think you said it all right now. I hope that we can begin to assemble something to, I don't know what our end artifact is or what it is that we're ultimately going to put together here. Is it going to be something very similar to the sheet that we already have published with respect to Loon awareness, and something similar that we're going to assemble? Is that sort of the next step?
I don't think we know yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, my video's not on. I got bad connection, and so rather than getting disconnected, I thought I'd shut off my video. And maybe where we look at things and talk about that next month with what we learned from Eric. I mean, there's a lot of resources out there, and I definitely can, I guess, be a little bit more organized for that next meeting, but I think maybe that's where we go next.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where we're planning. I think it may take more than one document for platforms, frankly. The question when you get more than one documents that I have is making sure everybody reads every document. And platforms are a little bit more tricky that way. It's because there can be errors that cause harm if everybody doesn't read the materials. So it may be, we may want to consider something very different in that approach, than some kind of I don't know. We'll have to think that through and see what we can work. Without having our own web page, we're limited. Like Birds Canada is now going to this Learn module system where people can sign up and they can watch a video and get a credit, and then move on to another video and watch it and get a credit, and so forth. And then they kind of have to work their way through the videos like baby version of Future Learn or something. But that's a lot of work involved, and it's outside my knowledge, and I don't think anybody else here would have that knowledge base. So that's it. Now, I'm curious, Luke, if that latest link I just dropped in the chat worked for you. Let me know. And that's all I have, unless people have group updates or we want to let Erica talk a bit more about the chick adoptions and overlands. What do folks want? Nancy?
Yeah, I'm still back. And what came at the end of that discussion about the needs for documenting in a more published formal way.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that came to mind was maybe something we could take on as a working group to create a document where we're listing potentially interesting research needs or topics that we could then, for example, if this has never happened, I've always wanted it to happen. An undergraduate or a graduate student comes to me and says, what can I do? Have potential topics that make great research, and I can just give them the data. I do have that, but nobody has been approached me. But maybe that would be one way to, I don't know, capture and be a little more proactive.
I love that idea.
Yeah. Too.
We may already have such a thing. We have so much in the drive that I'm afraid to suggest we should start another one. We should look and see if we have one first. What do we have
Definitely.
here? We have a lot of things.
Or maybe that's a project for
Maybe that's a
an
project.
undergraduate student.
Yeah. we have nothing by that name. So
Yeah.
maybe we don't have it. We thought we also had a folder earlier on platforms, and I can't find one. So
Yeah. I mean, I've got just personally on my laptop, I've got a document that I use when I'm talking to students, but it's focused on the more medical and pathology kinds of projects that I'm interested in. But, you know, these sort of observational or ecological behavioral ones are super important.
I wonder if maybe we all could, you know, this could be our homework assignment to, you know, write down our ideas and
Oh.
the next meeting, share them.
Erica,
Well-
you're full of good ideas today. I love it.
I think that's an excellent idea if we have time in the next meeting, because if we have Eric, we may want to concentrate on what Eric has to say. And we also have to go over our goals and visions, but that again, we can keep putting that off. But yeah, that's a great idea. Do you guys want to start a list on your own, or how do you want to do this?
We could
I-
even just
I like
start
the
a Google
idea of-
document, Erica, and
Yeah.
open that up and let people write down ideas very succinctly. And then that to be collated later by topic, perhaps. That seems somewhat simpler than,
Either that or we can even do like a Google Forms questionnaire.
Yeah,
send
Google
it to
Forms. You can do that.
leadership and
Yeah.
have that auto-populate a spreadsheet.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, the one advantage of the document versus the Google Forms is that or we could use just spreadsheet. People can see what other people can say, and then maybe they can upvote and say this is a great topic, versus everybody putting in the same topic over and over again. I don't know what's the best,
Yeah.
but I suspect we'd all sit there and say, yes, we want to learn more about tick adoptions, and we want to learn more about how far that they will like to go over land, and what situations are, and
Yeah.
when does the
Yeah.
lake get so busy that they don't go on it anymore. That's going to be a hard one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, certainly Jeff Fair has documented loons going between quarter and half a mile between lakes.
Wow.
What's that in meters?
Well, between 600 and 1200 meters.
Oh,
Mhm.
I've seen that. I have seen that. I'm pretty, I don't, unfortunately, because of my people, the data is not as concise. We don't see the whole
Right.
process. We just know that there was loons on A and then suddenly they were on B. And when you
Mm.
start looking around, there's nothing that's under that 500-meter range.
Yeah.
So, even Dieter and Marlies Schoenfeld found one
Yeah.
the other last year, but they were only a couple hundred meters that trip.
Yeah. That's up by Sudbury, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And certainly one of the things we see from the pathology point of view, you know, a couple of times a year is, you know, balloons that get hit by cars.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and these aren't the crash landed ones that crashed in the road. These are the, you know,
Going from one lake to another, and
sure.
And I think, you know, just from the cases that we've observed, I feel like I would hypothesize that most of it's related to nesting habitat. For instance, one lake that we had in central Wisconsin, the pair nested, you know, they had to go probably 100, 150 meters up a 60-degree slope to get to the lake that adults were normally on. And as soon as we put an ANP on that lake, they never went back to the other one. So I think, you know, and even all of our stuff in central or in north central Minnesota right now, the ones where we see them move lakes, it's the same thing. There's just a lack of nesting habitat where they want to be, and so they're using what's available and then moving to the better habitat.
So the next question, is this caused by humans, or is this actually the way it's always was and we just didn't notice it because there was no people there?
My guess is it's multifactorial. You know, probably a lot has to do with prey density. You know, we certainly know on some of the more acid lakes, as the pH has gone down, you have fewer of the larger fish, you tend towards some of the smaller. So I think changes in prey density due to fishing, due to introduction of big predator fish like bass, due to acid, I think it's going to be hard to tease that out. And it's going to
I
vary
also-
from place to place.
Yeah. I also think storm events and
Oh,
drought
yeah.
events change the nesting habitat
Yes.
in huge
Yeah.
ways.
Mhm.
And they may be forced to nest in a subprime habitat, and that might be for a few years until things sort of go back to quote unquote normal, which do we have a normal anymore?
Right. I mean, the other one that we see is the increasing bald eagle populations, as the pole shucks were talking about. That could certainly make loons want to shift.
And I'm wondering, and now in some parts of Ontario, about a shift in phenology.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing earlier chicks in some areas. Mind you, if they can get back to the lake earlier, they can build up body condition earlier, right? But I also think it's putting them into times of year where they have greater water level fluctuations in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Yeah.
it's
No, that's very likely. Yeah. There's a PhD thesis.
just get somebody after Matthew, right?
There's a mess. I mean, then you think about like black fly outbreaks and how does that to do with climate change and
Sure.
and habitat and things like that. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Emerging parasites, emerging diseases. I mean, the list goes on and on. And
Yeah, didn't they have malaria in a couple loons last year, Mark?
more than a couple. Yeah,
More
the
than a
numbers
couple.
going up more than a couple. The numbers going up every year, it seems like. Yeah.
Well, it's now 5:04. Do we have any other updates to share, or are we in a good place, guys?
I'm good. Loon Watch has its photo contest. So if you've taken some good photos, go on to our website, northland.edu/loonwatch, and you can use an FTP and send your photos to me for the contest, or encourage other people to.
Do you guys still sell the poster, Erica?
Oh yeah, they're on that site too. Let me get that up.
Did anybody want to take the lead on the Google document?
I'll do it.
I said I was gonna do it and I was muted, but okay.
The rest of us will all contribute. Yeah.
Now, let me see. Our next meeting is September 25th. I will actually make that one, but I'll let Jay lead because I'm packing to migrate at that time. Yes, I'm going to the East Coast. And after that's October 30th. And Erica's taken the lead on that one. Thank you, Erica and Jay. And any other questions, anyone, or updates before we go?
I have one just quick story that I wanted to know if anybody else had seen it. I have somebody that I spoke with, like 40 some people at the end of the Gunflint Trail, and they have seen this particular feeding activity where one parent goes down and gets the food and comes up and gives the food to the other parent, and and the parent on the surface gives the food to the baby. So it's just a constant, and they have videos of it. I had never seen it myself. Have you guys seen it? What's going on with that? Is it prevalent or kind of rare? Or what would be the advantage?
It's quicker.
Yeah, I don't know about advantage, but there's one pair that I saw that did that regularly, particularly when the chicks were really little and they were feeding them a lot of invertebrates, dragonfly larvae, and they'd always seem to hand it to the other parent.
Okay.
And being sexist, I was assuming the dad was handing it to the mom so she could give it to the baby, but I don't really know that.
Okay. I just didn't know, if other people have seen it, I have just never seen it or heard of it before.
Mhm.
So. And usually they never go back to the nest. But one other person told me that it was a really torrential, terrible rain for hours and hours. And they saw this family take the chicks back to the nest. And it was on a floating platform. And
Neat.
cover their wings around the chicks and keep them warm, and so that they weren't drowning in these big waves and torrential rain events for hours.
Wow. How old were the chicks, Sherry?
That's a good question. I'll have to ask them. I
We've
have the person's email and name.
Wow.
She's an older person who's been on the gunflint for 100 years. Well, okay, less than 100 years, but close. And so she really had a lot of information and a lot of insights and things she had seen. So that was one of her stories.
Cool.
I've
Thank
heard the odd report of them going back to the nest, but it's incredibly, incredibly rare to the point where you're always wanting more information when you hear it.
Mhm.
But it's not normal.
Interestingly enough, though, the guy who runs the Minnesota Loon Cam, I'm blanking on his name right now. We used to capture the loons on that lake. He had for a week after hatching, those adults and those chicks would constantly go back to the AMP. It changed his whole thought process on removing the AMP as soon as the chicks hatched. And the only reason that we can hypothesize it is that there was 2 eggs and the second one didn't hatch. And even though they only stayed incubating that second egg for about another day or 2 days afterwards, they continually were going to check on it or something. It was really interesting.
That is interesting. They're all individuals, they're all different. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, the one goose adoption by a loon that we had in Alberta, they kept returning to the platform. And the only food that goose was getting was off that platform because they wouldn't let the gosling go on the mainland. And we had one gosling, we had 2 similar events in 2 separate years. And the one that managed to get onto land to feed survived. That one had another loon chick involved. So I think the parents are busier, but the one set of parents that had a single gosling, we believe the gosling starved because he just did not get enough food. What he was eating was off the platform.
Huh.
Yeah. Which I thought was quite intriguing that they let him on that, but not let him on the regular land.
Were they feeding it chicks? The
They were feeding it fish. Yep.
Fish.
Fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not chicks,
Both
fish.
situations, they were feeding him fish and whatever it is that they would feed a loon normally.
Yeah.
But the one gosling would get away from the parents and get on mainland and get fed grass, and the other one did not, and the other pair. And the one survived and the other one didn't.
It's interesting that happened because that duck chick was primarily eating fish. And Walter thought it got very big very fast because of its high protein diet. So that's
but mallards eat a lot of invertebrates. They eat a lot of earthworms and beetles and all kinds of proteinaceous stuff. And I don't think
Canada geese don't.
No, they're grazers.
Yeah. Geese would be more grass and aquatic vegetation, but not the inverts. I mean, we actually have a pond right outside our center that all winter it doesn't freeze, and we'll have mallards dive foraging on the minnows that are out there.
And you could see this one gosling. You could actually see the breasts getting thinner and thinner during the season. Yeah,
that's awful.
Yeah. Well, it's on that lovely happy note. It's 5:11, so I guess we should let everybody go have their break before the next meeting. Thank you, everyone. I have everyone's name listed except 7802 person. And everybody have a great week.
You too, Kathy. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for everything.
Thank you.